Welcome to the LinkedIn Live for Well Workplaces. I'm Tom Bosna, and today I'm chatting again with Dr. Natalie Flatt.
Hi,
Natalie,
Tom.
how you going?
I'm well, you?
Yeah, I'm really well. This is becoming a bit of a habit, isn't it? Us chatting on LinkedIn Live. We chatted 2 weeks ago, and then a podcast about a month before that.
I always love chatting with you, all things mental health, Tom.
Thanks, that's too kind. Now, if you are listening to this live or watching this later, if you could let us know where exactly you're listening from, and if you do have any questions that you want to ask, feel free to enter a question in the comments, and Dr. Natalie and I can attempt to answer your questions in the session. But today we're talking social anxiety, and in particularly how we can, I suppose, use our time up during COVID and following COVID to enable us to find points in time where we can reflect and learn from, I suppose, the lessons of COVID. Now, my understanding of anxiety, Natalie, is pretty basic. I kind of understand it to be, I suppose, feeling of nervousness, restless, and feeling tense at times. And this year's been I'd be lying to say that I haven't felt any of those things, and I think everybody can relate to that, especially trying to juggle work and home. And, you know, an example could be for me is being at work all day, you know, getting through what I need to get through, and then going home and being a parent and, you know, not really having any time to switch off. So I dare say for myself that I've felt anxiety at certain points this year, and having chatted with a lot of friends, I know that's really common. And I suppose for anxiety, there's probably a tipping point where it goes from being a little bit of feelings of nervousness to eventually becoming maybe a clinical issue or something more serious. I don't know the answer to that, so I'm hoping that you can share some light on the issue and tell us, what is social anxiety?
Absolutely, Tom. Well, I think what you're really experiencing also, which I should differentiate, is a lot of stress. But how that can then differentiate then in between stress and anxiety is that, like, it's a matter of then you waking up in the day and then saying, how am I going to face this day? And then going through the day with that little bit of trepidation and that fear and even that avoidance. And that's where it can then turn into the anxiety. And social anxiety really came to the forefront during this time in a positive and negative way. There are really 6 types of anxiety, and focusing on social anxiety, which is around, I think latest stats show around 11% of Australians will suffer from social anxiety at one point over their lifetime. So that actually is quite a high statistic. And social anxiety is, or what other people do call as social phobia, is really a fear of being in front of individuals and performing in some way, shape, or form, and then having that fear of being laughed at, humiliated, or criticised in the everyday situations that we're faced with, even in job and with meeting people or going to functions or being presenting, just like right now. So people we all have that little bit of nervousness about how we are perceived. Okay, we are social beings. We all have that tiny bit of feeling, how do people, are we being evaluated right now? Does so-and-so like us? How are we perceived during that presentation? And that's a common thought pattern. But individuals that have been diagnosed with that social anxiety disorder, those feelings are far more intense and might I say traumatic, and it requires a hell of a lot of effort to get and to place themselves in those situations. And they have symptoms that may not be seen to the naked eye. they may be having a lot of physiological symptoms such as complete nausea, rapid heartbeat, just feeling like complete migraines, sweating, that feeling that needing to go to the bathroom is a really common one. Anything that is really starting to trigger that anxious response, and they're kind of struggling through that situation or that function or that presentation or that meeting. with these feelings that are in their body, and they walk away from that and they're just like, thank goodness that's over. So that's the area with social anxiety, and during this time they really the individuals with social anxiety got a great reprieve, didn't they? They didn't have to show up to work. They some companies said they allow them to not put their Zoom meeting cameras on, so they had this breath of air, should I say. But now with things opening up, they don't, a lot of individuals that we're dealing with, they just don't know how they can go back to that. And they feel like it's compounded it now that it's opening up, and they were loving the restrictions. So you've got a bit of an issue just occurring here, and it probably goes the same with a lot of individuals. And I know we haven't spoken about JOMO yet, but like the FOMO characteristics, the fear of missing out, also had that feeling just going, wow, I can't believe how much I was needing to keep on doing everything because of fear of what I would be evaluated or criticised or spoken about behind my back if I didn't turn up. So they also then had this, like these extreme, essentially like extroverts had this sensation of just a massive relief as well, going, I don't have to put myself out there. And now they're even having this mindset, and they're very confused. So yeah, we're dealing with a lot of that as well on the platform.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I think I've chatted with a lot of self-proclaimed extroverts who have kind of gone, oh, maybe I've enjoyed all this time, this introspective time. But definitely the more introverted people, they seem to be quite comfortable like in this kind of environment. And I think in the workplace, we've seen people being on Zoom calls, especially large Zoom calls. I spoke with Dr. Christy Goodwin, who's a digital wellbeing expert, the other day, and she was saying how the Zoom meetings have actually reduced our time in meetings by about 20%, but the number of people in those meetings has increased quite a lot. And she referred to it as digital presenteeism, so basically people being in meetings, not really contributing much, but feeling like they are, because we are, I suppose, we like to be in tribes as humans, I suppose. So it's quite an interesting observation from her, and also what you're saying there with social anxiety. I'm assuming that with social anxiety or any types of anxiety, we kind of have to find ways to cope ourselves. So in my examples earlier, for me, if that happens, I'm feeling nervous or I'm restless or tense or whatever, I can, chat with my friends and family. I can sort of do a bit of self-talk and kind of tell myself, just to kind of keep going or whatever it is. And then I can kind of talk myself around it. If you do have social anxiety, is it that you can't really do that, or you don't have the right tactics, or is it the mindset is a problem? What do you think?
Yeah, look, it's great. I mean, the positive and negative thinking, which is what you've just said, just keep going. Let's just get on with it. We all use that. And it can be, even this morning I'll say, I'll make a mention of every morning. I say to my husband, right, today's going to be a good day, right? Now that's a positive thought. Okay, that is good for me. That might elicit for me some motivation, or I suppose trick my brain into just getting up and starting the day. But from a helping perspective or problem-solving strategy, not so much. And attitude is one thing, where you can have that positive attitude, but it's more about taking it to the next level and looking at your mindset. And a fabulous psychologist from Stanford University, Carol Dweck, does a lot around fixed versus growth mindsets. And we can find ourselves in certain situations where if we're utilizing a fixed mindset where we're like, well, you know what, this is just me, this is who I am, this is how I'm built, this is my learning capability, this is my athleticism, that I'm at my peak, that's it, this is the card I was dealt, that's it. That's more of a fixed mindset. You're never going to be able to grow, be able to learn, and you're also then knocking out opportunities because you're not ever allowing yourself to come up to that step. Whereas if you can create more of a growth mindset to say, you know what, this is who I am right now, but what can I do to get from A to B? What are some small steps I can take? Because even though I am shy in certain situations, even though there's certain areas that, when I'm presenting that can make me feel incredibly overwhelmed, what can I do to lessen that impact this time? And then what can I do to lessen it again the third time and then the fourth time? And so it's a little bit of that practice makes perfect style. But it all starts with the mind, doesn't it, Tom?
Yeah, really interesting there on the fixed versus growth mindset. And I think it's those phrases, they're things that everybody has heard of. It's probably then putting it into the actual practice. And if you are predominantly finding yourself in that fixed mindset, it's kind of like, how do you break that cycle? And I think with this year, which has been challenging for everybody, we've seen in the workplace and in our friends and family as well, is the people with the growth mindset are the ones that are able to sort of deal with the situation and kind of adapt on the fly and come up with solutions. And then they tend to get more opportunities, and kind of, I suppose, with each little win that they have, whether it's a small win where they're starting their day. We talk a lot about habit creation as well. And I was chatting with somebody recently, Malo Kalako, about mindfulness as a practice. He was just mentioning that to start his day, to get himself in a good mindset and a positive, really positive start, is he actually makes sure he does his long walk for an hour each day. That's something that he does for himself. And then he goes home and cooks a healthy breakfast, which is his, those two things combined, plus some mindfulness practice and some breathing. That's just what he does as a routine every day. And he feels like he's winning right at the start of the day because he does that. Are strategies like that what you would recommend for people to kind of reflect on their day, whether they've had a day where they've ended up having quite negative feelings or quite anxious? What would you recommend for people to kind of recalibrate and reflect?
Absolutely. And I'll extend on what you were just saying then, Tom, because it's so important, even just as reflection, where, you can wake up in the morning and as soon as you say the words, like, oh, I should get up and I should go for a walk, or I should make a healthy breakfast. We're putting a lot of pressure upon ourselves to not go and do it, because then that means that we kind of disempower ourselves by saying the word I should. Whereas if you then reflect on saying, well, if I do it, I know how that makes me feel after. And so then you're more likely to do it. And instead of using the word should, use the word choose to. And just even changing that language can then start to allow yourself to break down some barriers to have a go at certain things. Even though they may not be perfect, it's about having a go. And that's even with the social anxiety aspect, to say, look, you know what, I'm choosing to put myself in this situation today, right? And I'm going to be able to create some strategies around it. Now, obviously, with any form of social situation, you're going to have to put yourself in it to then know what the outcome is. So that's always probably the most daunting aspect. And one of the most common behavioral outcomes to anxiety is avoidance. So we still have to have that little bit of push. Okay, so try not to use the word should, use the word choose to. Let yourself be empowered and have a go. Even just basic stuff like, one of my goals would be to run a marathon. Okay, well, if you're going to keep on saying every day, I should be running 2 hours, well, not going to really do it, are you? Where I choose to because of this. This is where I want to get to. So it's also really good. Growth mindsets also really helps with goal orientation, and it is actually the key to success in many businesses, school, academic, sporting. So it's and especially in social situations as well. So after you have gone, say, back to the office, next year, the dreaded office, which we all don't know what that is still looking like, and I know there's a lot of anxiety around for the general population about that. How was, going for the first week then and reflecting upon that at the end, like, how was it? How did I feel? How did I feel in the morning? And then how did I feel at the end of the day? And you know what, even rate it. I used to be a child psychologist in my past life. And I used to get the kids even that were showing social anxiety then, because a lot of this social anxiety does start in childhood. We can see it rear its ugly head in childhood. Whereas they'd rate their day if they didn't want to go to school out of 10 as like a little fear thermometer. And then at the end of the day, they would reflect upon the day and they would rate it again. And what this did, that it empowered them to say, okay, I thought I was going in the day with 10 out of 10 anxiety, but you know what? Charlie let me play, Johnny included me in his group, and everything, and all these little positive little snippets throughout the day was then able to be reflected upon at the end of the day, and then to go, actually, you know what, I'll now rate that day, if I looked at it retrospectively, a 4 out of 10. So you take that fear rating and then you use it for the next day. So rather than default to say, this is going to be a really crappy day, what am I going to do? What if this happens? What if this happens? You've got to say, stop. You know what? That didn't actually happen yesterday. What can I do differently today? What improvements can I make that is going to keep this day a 4 out of 10 to start with? And maybe by the end of the day, it might go to a 3 out of 10. So it's really important to reflect. And this is going to then also incorporate, some problem solving strategies. So I like to use 4 questions. What could I have done differently? At the end of the day, you can always look at the day and say, what could I have done differently? What improvements can I actually make? What resources did I use to help me when things did get difficult? Okay, was there someone I could talk to? Was there a bit of a safety plan? Was there special music like mindfulness to calm me down? Did I have a level of distraction? Could I call someone? And also, what is it that I'm most proud of today? Okay, and how can I then share that with others? So that allows, if you've got a safe place of substance friends, to be able to lift you up and to be able to provide you that confidence, say, good on you. You know what? I understand how hard that was for you to do that. And I'm really patting you on the back here, and I know that you can keep going. And these are tiny little steps that you need to take to be able to build your confidence, that each single time upon that reflection is then going to build that growth mindset. And that's going to create, with that neuroplasticity in the mind, create the new neural pathways to alleviate the anxiety and to build the confidence to then prove that you can get over this social anxiety, or you can control the social anxiety in these situations.
Yeah, those tips are amazing, by the way. So it sounds like each day, basically ask yourself those 4 questions, and share those things with friends and family to elevate your own confidence. In summary, is that fair to say?
Pretty much, yeah, absolutely. It's not. Anything just takes a little bit of commitment and effort. Like no one, and I think I've had many a times where you're like, can you just pull out your magic wand and make this disappear? I would love to. I'd love to say as a psych I can do that, but it takes that time and that effort. But they're life skills, and they're being able to be utilised in every facet of your life. So it's certainly a really good skill set to use and then impart on friends and family and children as well.
Yeah, I love it. And I think also just from a workplace perspective as well, those 4 questions almost sound like leadership questions as well. So, in a team environment, perhaps where people have been on Zoom for the whole year and they're a little bit anxious about returning to see their team in person, kind of maybe feeling a bit insecure about their contribution to the team, those leadership questions, the ones that you actually just referred to as, I suppose, reflective questions for yourself, they could actually be utilised for leaders to create a dialogue of, I suppose, confidence boosting morale in the team.
Absolutely. They're great collaborators as well, because, especially after projects have been delivered, and if they have been delivered remotely, or, now they'll be moving forward, face-to-face and remotely, because I think that's the way that flexible working is looking, to have those 4 questions asked at the end of each project. So you can really gain, I suppose, a real team effort. And it's good emotional intelligence from the leader to ask those 4 questions to their teams.
Absolutely. Hey, that's really great. I think you've covered off on all the really great tips there for social anxiety and anxiety in general, and those questions to ask yourself each day. That's something that I'll definitely take from this chat and put into action. I suppose the key, though, like most of things with well-being, it really involves the person. These changes can't happen to you. You have to actually do it yourself and do the hard work.
Absolutely. You have to be mindful, and you have to have that level of self-efficacy, but believe in yourself that you can do it. And it's not, and just really start to combat that fixed mindset that we can actually really do anything we want to do. My son really wants to be an astronaut. he can start studying. but you know, like generally speaking, that we can do whatever we want to do, but it all comes down to the mindset and how that's placed.
Beautiful. What a great summary. We'll finish there, Natalie. If anyone wants to ask us questions directly on LinkedIn, feel free to send us a direct message and we'll get back to you as soon as we can. But lovely to chat with you again, Dr. Nat, and we should do this again probably over the next month or so as things change. If you're interested in another chat about mental health and how we can create a healthier conversation for workplaces and our community.
Absolutely, Tom. Looking forward to it. See you soon.
Great. Thank you. See you later.